Jeffrey Epstein, a name that has haunted headlines, whispered in private circles, and buried deep within documents that the public was never meant to see. But what if there were hidden clues that could expose the connections, the networks, the secrets that celebrities and powerful figures would prefer to stay hidden? Tonight, we're diving into the Epstein files, and we're not just skimming the surface, we're peeling back the layers, one shocking revelation at a time. And you might want to pay attention, because what you're about to see changes everything you thought you knew. Let's start with something simple, yet terrifying. A photograph, a single photograph. Taken years ago, it captures Epstein standing behind someone famous, a name you might recognize immediately. But what makes it strange is what's not shown. There's a figure, partially hidden in the shadows. Who are they? And why is their presence almost erased from history? Documents, emails, and flight logs suggest that this wasn't a coincidence. These people, these names, they aren't just acquaintances. They are part of a network, meticulously hidden in plain sight. Every dinner, every party, every meeting, potentially connected to Epstein's world, and yet mainstream headlines barely touched it. Here's the question: if this was all innocent, why such secrecy? Now, look closer. These flight logs, hundreds of flights, thousands of names, celebrities, politicians, businessmen, all in the same orbit. Most people dismiss these as coincidences, but coincidences don't explain repeated appearances, or the timing. Why did certain figures travel repeatedly on Epstein's planes? Sometimes late at night, sometimes under the radar of mainstream scrutiny. And here's a twist. Some names appear on documents, but not on flight logs. Why? Were certain interactions meant to stay invisible forever? It's almost as if the system itself was protecting certain identities, shielding them from exposure. Then, there's the infamous island, Little St. James, often described in reports as a private paradise. But for whom? Because what's chilling isn't the luxury, it's the list of visitors, many of whom were never publicly linked to Epstein. Some documents hint at late-night arrivals, private flights, and guests whose presence was erased from photographs. The pattern is hard to ignore: power, secrecy, and privilege, colliding in ways that the public rarely sees. Now ask yourself, if this was just a social circle, why go to such lengths to hide it? Here's where it gets darker. Certain celebrities, those with immense influence, appear repeatedly in tangential evidence, emails, photographs, even casual mentions in journals, yet most of them have never publicly addressed it. Why the silence? Some suggest legal threats. Others hint at reputational damage. But consider this: if you knew something that could ruin a legacy, something that connected you to one of the most notorious networks in modern history, wouldn't you be silent too? And yet, despite the silence, the clues remain, hidden but persistent, almost as if someone, somewhere, didn't want these connections completely erased. Let's talk about the clues most people miss. Handwritten notes, partially redacted legal documents, timestamps, patterns that hint at meetings and exchanges never fully documented. Look closely at these timestamps. Some events overlap suspiciously, certain letters and numbers repeated again and again. At first glance, meaningless. But in context, they suggest coordination, a hidden system, almost like a secret code, guiding who meets whom, and when. Is it paranoia to see a pattern, or is it reality? So why has the world only seen fragments? Why were investigations delayed, buried, or deflected? There's no simple answer. Some suggest powerful legal teams, others hint at political influence, or even financial leverage. But here's a chilling possibility. The very fabric of secrecy around Epstein wasn't just about him. It was about protecting the network, protecting a system of privilege so powerful that revealing it could shake institutions to their core. Think about that. The world barely scratched the surface. And what if the surface is just a mask? And now, the questions that keep historians, journalists, and investigators awake at night. Who was truly orchestrating these connections behind the scenes? Which names were intentionally omitted from flight logs and photographs? And what evidence still buried? So find lie, what there, expose the fine, so behind the full network. These aren't just idle questions. Each clue, each redacted page, Sadan's, is a breadcrumb leading us closer to truths that some would kill to keep hidden. When you start connecting the dots, it becomes almost impossible to ignore. Photographs, flight logs, emails, island guest lists, they form a pattern, a map of influence, a web of secrecy, and in the center, one figure whose shadow stretched across wealth, fame, and power. But perhaps the most unnerving thought is that these clues aren't all gone. They're still out there, waiting for eyes brave enough and curious enough to see what's really behind the headlines. So the next time you hear a familiar name or see a blurred photograph, remember this: the truth isn't always what the media tells us. Sometimes it's hidden in plain sight, and the biggest question remains: how deep does this network go? Stay curious, because the Epstein files are far from closed.